Hi guys, this is Willow. Today I'm going to be showing you how to paint a galaxy dolphin. And this is a fun lesson, just a good intro on painting galaxies in watercolor. And I'll show you how to paint some other galaxies as we go along in other videos. But right now, I thought a galaxy dolphin was a good one. You can see one that I have finished right here. And once you learn how to do the galaxies, you can move on to paint things like galaxy orcas, or perhaps a galaxy narwhal. Here's another one I painted. And again, this is Willow. So let's start with supplies, what you'll need. So for this lesson, it'd be a good idea to have some paints. So here are my watercolor paints. I'm using Winsor & Newton today. So just these wonderful little paints here. And you'll need two paintbrushes, one that's about a number 6 to a number 8 round. And make sure your paintbrush is extra soft. If it's extra soft, that means that it'll be able to hold more water. You'll also need a number 1 so that you can paint all the beautiful stars on your galaxy. And then of course, you'll need a pencil so that you can sketch out your galaxy dolphin ahead of time. And make sure that you also have some good watercolor paper. So I'm using this Canson Watercolor XL, and it's 140 pounds. That's a good thing to look at. Make sure your paper is 140 pounds. You don't have to use this same paper, but make sure it says 140 pounds so it's nice and thick. Okay, so let's get started. This is the sketch that I did of my dolphin. Now you can look up dolphin outline and see lots of different examples of how to draw this. But for now, let's just assume we all have a dolphin outline and we're gonna start painting. I'm gonna start by adding water to my paint, because you really want to mix up your paint before you start so that for this technique, it's already ready for you when you go to paint. So I'm adding some blue, adding a little water. I have some black here, adding some water. I have some purple here, adding some water to that. And I have never bought purple paint, which is an interesting thing to say, but I like to just mix my rose madder and my French ultramarine blue, and together they make a really lovely purple. Okay, let's get started painting. First, you're going to paint with water. This seems a little strange, but we're using a technique called wet on wet or wet onto wet. So I'm going to paint the first part of this dolphin with just water. Now don't let it be too wet. If it's drippy, it's going to drip all over. Make sure that every time you get water, you dab off your brush just a little bit so it doesn't drip all over your paper. You want your dolphin to be wet, but not so wet that if you tipped your paper, it would drip all over the place. So I'm going to wet about half of my dolphin. And now I'm going to add color. I'm going to start by making some dots. And again, this technique is called wet on wet or wet onto wet, as some call it. You can see how when I put the paint down, it spreads nicely. That's called blooming. So now I'm going to add some blue. Ooh. And some purple. And now I'm going to use just a wet brush and kind of control the edges just to make sure that I have some nice crisp edges and I'm barely touching down with my paintbrush. Barely touching down. Okay, Let's do the second half. You can see how the paint wants to follow the water. You get these nice blooming effects. Make sure you stay inside your outline. If you go outside of it a little bit, just use a paper towel or maybe a Q-tip to gently dab the edges so that your paint doesn't travel outside of your silhouette. I paint a lot of galaxies. I love painting galaxies. In fact, I did a galaxy portrait just yesterday. And once you're comfortable painting galaxies, you can pretty much paint them in anything. Galaxy in a jar, galaxy in the silhouette of a cat, or just a galaxy. So now I'm going to add some more paint. When you're painting galaxies, it's good to leave a little space or a little white. I call this the nebula. I kind of imagine there's a big cluster of stars or a nova. Leave a little space. Imagine that beautiful galaxy. If you put your paint on and you find that it doesn't run around and it stays in one spot, then maybe your galaxy is already drying. And some people will think, oh, I need to re-wet it. But if you re-wet it, it's all going to kind of run together and look a little soupy. So be careful if it starts to get too dry, then it might be time to just stop. But I'll also show you how to fix it. If it's a little dry and you want to add some more colors, you can still do that. Okay, this galaxy is looking good. I'm going to add some more blue. I feel like it needs some more blue. Sometimes I paint these galaxies and use salt to give them stars, but today we're going to use blue and white mixed together, as well as just some white to give some stars. Once you have your dolphin completely painted in, then you're going to want to let it dry and add stars. I'm going to show you how I added these stars. Use my small brush, get it wet, dip into a little bit of white paint, and then dot on my stars. Now I've had people say, but Willow, you can just splash your stars on or splatter them on. Yes, you can, but I've also splattered white paint all over so many things doing it that way. And I find that it's really nice and mellow and sort of relaxing, almost meditative to just paint on all these stars. Make sure some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, some are really close to each other. Maybe some are starbursts, and maybe some are shooting stars. So that's how we paint a galaxy dolphin.